Okay. Hello, everyone. Dr. Susan Kaye here with Abba Carmichael, right? Did I say that right?
On point.
Okay, let's start again. And I wanted to make sure I get my sexual biography. Okay. Hello, everyone. Dr. Susan Kaye here. I'm with Abba Carmichael. She is the founder of My Sexual Biography. And she's going to tell us what that's about. I mean, I know I read romance novels in seventh grade. Is that the same thing? I'm reading these stories of people's sexual liaisons. So, okay, she says yes. All right. So
Well,
I'll just I'll just let you take it from here, Abba, and help us to know what is my sexual biography.
thank you, Susan. I'm happy to get to chat about this. So to dispel that misconception, not the same as a romance novel, not in terms of how our organization is set up, but it completely could be if that's the road you want to take with writing your biography. So it could be, but that's not what we are explicitly about. What we are, so we're a nonprofit organization, and we believe that sex education is a vehicle for peace,
Mm.
and peace that starts in ourselves and then echoes out and grows into our relationship and continues out into our communities and world when we are not sexually repressed, depressed, or suppressed.
Mm.
When we're not those things, we can more fully express who
Right.
we truly are in our sexuality. So the biography part, it's your story. You have a biography in all aspects, all other aspects of your life, and in pretty much every other aspect of your life, you are encouraged to reflect and set goals and respond back to that reflection and goal setting by maybe re-navigating or realigning what you're doing so that you can achieve those goals. So, you have career goals, you have your career biography, which is maybe one of the more common things that's written about, or your family biography, your family story, relationship biography and story. But very specifically, your sexual biography is a core carnal part of each of us
Mhm.
that we are never told or encouraged to think about or consider, and therefore we're not giving reflection to it, and
Yeah.
therefore we're not setting goals within it, and therefore we're not giving it attention and education.
Wow,
So
so important. What led you to realize that this was a missing in our culture and conversations about our growth and development?
I wish that I had a really profound story of, maybe I was in the woods, and and the energy came to me and I was spoken down. It was it was relatively accidental. It does have a pretty nice story. I was on an island in Croatia, and I at a summit, and made some friends there, and we were discussing desire and what we want. We were at a workshop discussing desire, and through that, sexual desire and career and life goals came up. And person I was talking with was talking about an interest of being a sex educator and a sex therapist. And I said, that's really interesting. I've actually always also had an interest in like sex therapy or sex education, never thinking that I would study it, not specifically thinking that I would go through and become a sex therapist, but just an interest in it, an interest in knowing more and learning more about it, not to have that necessarily be my profession. So anyway, I was talking with this friend, and I basically said, like, how could I support you in creating this life goal for yourself? And through that, we ended up talking more and more, and this idea of a sexual biography emerged. And we pitched it around, and they didn't end up wanting to follow through with it. They wanted to follow a different career path, but I got really
Mm.
excited and invigorated about it. So I was like, I would like to continue this. I'd like to to take the flag and see where this concept might lead and how it might be able to empower people. Because as I was having conversations and talking about this concept, I was quickly seeing that it resonated. There was something in the framing of saying my sexual biography that resonated with people, but then more importantly, the fact that I was opening the door to talk about this, that's what I saw was needed. So that's really the focus of education and conversation are really the focus for us and what we're trying to do and foster and build.
That's awesome, because I'm sitting here thinking, you know, we don't even do like rituals. Like some countries will celebrate Menses with their young girls, and we don't do any men, you know, like any celebrations for the men or women around the sexual stages of life. We just have like an ongoing don't do it. and
Yes.
And I'm sure you're finding that in the stories that you're gathering, what that has meant in people's lives, this kind of brushing it away or ignoring it or saying don't do it.
Yes. Yes. So we actually discussed rituals recently. But the framework that we've set is sex education is huge. So we're looking to be, you know, sex education for the 21st century, sex education and empowerment. So what we do is we pick a theme each month. We try to do a mix of more, I'm going to label it as like more energetical, such as one theme is sex and breath. So there's a little more theoretical. And then we have like very specific, more scientifically clearly known things, such as upcoming month, we're doing female genital mutilation. We've done ethical porn. We're talking about a healthy masculinity soon. We're talking about group sex currently. So we have this mix of like things like sex and light and how that influences your sexuality and sex, and therefore your biography. Like basically we take these themes as a lens on top of all that is sex education and sexual empowerment. We put this as a lens of like, okay, now we're going to shine light on this aspect and how this either is influencing your biography or how by better learning about it, you can empower yourself and maybe reclaim that part of your biography, such as group sex, like what we're talking about right now. It doesn't mean go out and do it if that's not what you want to do. It just means by being educated about it, you might either wipe away some taboo that you have around it mentally, and or if you ever do get yourself into that opportunity or situation, you are better informed and know what to do. Which is also another pretty central part of what we're trying to do. We're trying to crush these taboos so that we can reclaim and not hold shame in our sexual selves.
And normalize. I mean, this should be taught in schools, right? We can't talk about it because they say they'll go out. If we talk about it, they'll go do it. But yet we're told to talk to our kids about drugs, so they don't do it. So there's such an underlying prejudice towards what we teach as far as our bodies, and even to be able to teach respect and permission and consent. I mean, let's start with some basics about teaching. So what you're doing is incredibly beneficial for people who are walking around with, am I normal if?
That's right.
Yeah. The project we have going on together. But it's so pervasive because there is no education, and we only compare ourselves to what the latest commercial is, or what the latest popular girl is, or what politics are in place. It throws us away from knowing ourselves and our stories and our biography, being ashamed of it, as you said, and not having any place to go. to get
And what's
facts. Yeah.
Yeah, and what is so frustrating and increasingly nuts to me
Mm.
are this is not just a societal issue. This is not an issue that is in my life or your life or a listener's life because their mom or dad didn't have a specific conversation with them, or their brother or aunt or sister didn't have a specific conversation with them. This isn't a problem just because in our close rings we're not having the conversation. This is media and our entire economical system and framework at large working against us at every angle. And I don't specifically want to go off on one of my longer tangents, but something that your listeners might find interesting is I think that there can be shame held in not knowing where to start. So we have classes that we put on that have a huge range in order to have a wide base of entry points of where someone feels comfortable coming in and starting to have these conversations. And we have people come in and they're just like, like I've never talked about this before, like this is strange for me. And I think it's important to understand that is not your fault. It's not anybody's fault. Like this has been dumped on us and blocked from us at every angle and opportunity possible. And it starts in school. It starts with our parents not being educated and having resources, and it continues through every daggum near commercial and box marketing that you see. And it is embedded in our current social media. We are shadow banned all the time on Instagram, and it is getting worse and worse. It's getting harder and harder for us to grow our audience and get the message out there, because at every turn of policy changes or internal changes at Facebook and the other social overlords, they twist the message of sexual education to include they're trying to ban exploitation, and then they end up sweeping education under that same rug, and it just screws over everybody. Like, yes, it's bad for me, but it's bad for everybody listening, because they're then not getting the content. They're not able to get the message. So I think it's funny, because I think we often, including us, like, one of the first things we do is like, what were your first sexual encounters? What was your first exposure to what sex education is? How did you learn what sex is? Was it accurate? Reflecting upon all of that, which is the early parts of your biography, or can be. And then I think we tend to think like, oh yeah, I didn't get it in school, or I didn't get it from my parents. But the reality is that like social media is the new textbook for a lot of youth. And now they're not getting it. Like it is not just big textbook, like big pharma. It's not just your textbook manufacturers. It's literally every media angle is taking and putting these really hardcore filters. And the more filters, therefore the more distance from the topic, therefore the more shame, therefore the harder it is to get to the education.
More pervasive. Yeah, we felt it, was it 3 years ago when Sesta Fosta came out?
Yes.
That's the group that's formed in the arena of sex trafficking, but they that you're talking about used it to sweep through websites, and even massage therapists that work with us, or friends of mine who had credentials and certifications, their sites went dark. overnight. So a lot of folks were moving their websites overseas. That didn't mean your site, that they couldn't come find you if they wanted to, but that your site couldn't just all of a sudden disappear. And you just wonder, what country do we live in sometimes when, our most basic human need, our most basic human right, the rights to our bodies, is being filtered and trampled on and denigrated, and all the things that we know that people grow up with and try and swim their way out of. Exactly what you're addressing. You have a lot of courage. It takes a lot, because I've been in this work 30 years, and I've seen it where we were good, like things like sexual, I was in the 60s, right? Things were good. And then it kind of tanked, and then AIDS happened. And, we kind of started coming out in 2000 when Tantra came on board, and a lot of these massage was more recognized and body work was more accepted. But I think we took a dive like 3 years ago. And so you're very courageous, and it feels good to be passing you the baton because
I'll take it. Send it over.
You got.
And then we'll break it up and we'll spread it around, because this is not going to be us.
Right.
There's no way for a singular fix.
Yeah.
This has to be a collective, larger effort, which is why it's great to get to chat.
And I think that there's folks that are doing really good work out there, and then they have to stay quiet or underground because of this. So we all are doing our part, and maybe the energy of that, or, we will all finally see the fruition of our labors and be able to be openly out and working with each other and promoting our message. Because it is, and it's a mission. I feel it's not just my work, it's my mission. And I get that with you too. Yeah.
100%. And what also gives me a lot of hope, if you look at TikTok, the subculture group of sex talk is huge and growing. And we're a part of that, and we're one of the early people on that. Growing a larger platform, but that has only exploded during this past year with COVID and sex educators being forced really to have to find people in a new way and reach out in a new way. So what's cool is there are some platforms that are a little less regulated, like TikTok, where education is getting out there. And it's the downside of that is not every single human is on TikTok, and not every single human that is on TikTok is watching. They're not watching those videos necessarily, but it shows that it gives a full proof of concept that the education is desired and consumed. People want it. You think of like early YouTubers like Lacey Green, who would talk about just really dive into a lot of sex stuff. Like, she became YouTube famous on a topic that nobody else is talking about because people want to hear about it. People want to learn. When people have the link to the knowledge, you can see it being just drinked up. People are consuming it all they can. So that's the good news, is that there's clearly people want it. It's just a matter of having to break through all of these filters in order to get it to the people, which yes, easier said than done. But
well, I really appreciate your courage again, and you're so well articulate about your desires for what people should have that is normal and natural for them to have. And it comes down to, for us in our work, it's about touch too, and being in touch. We've thrown out touch because it could lead to sex. right? And touch is our most primal need. It's the only fully developed sense that we have. Every nerve ending in our skin is developed when we're born. You know, we can't see so good, we can't hear so good, we can only smell mother's milk, and we have no taste buds, right? What happens is we age out, can't see so good, can't hear so good, lose our sense of taste and smell, but our skin hungers never change. And I'm hopeful that excuse me, this work that all of us are doing that are in this field will be seen as more needed, because we've been shut up in houses and we've been shut off from each other. And we're realizing that I'm out of touch, both with myself and with others. And that's the core value that we're all teaching. Yeah, it's wrapped up in this thing called sex that's, you know, we have to get past the semantics, but underneath it all is that humanity needs to be touched. Human beings need to be touched.
Yes, and a couple of things there. Like one is, what an absolutely incredible global experiment that just happened. That if anybody has any question or hesitation of what our carnal needs are,
Right.
we now know it's toilet paper and human connection. You know, that has been
Bodies.
made just blatantly clear to every single one of us. Even if you were lucky enough to be like in your home, maybe it's not explicitly, you know, skin to skin touch, but that touch of energetical exchange that you get from being able to see and meet and be around other people.
Yeah.
Clearly, we now know, all of us very deeply, like this is carnal and needed in each of us. And it's to that point, that touch that we all need, that brings us peace and satisfaction, which goes back to our mission, which is sex education and empowerment is a vehicle for peace.
Yeah.
Deeply, genuinely, gutturally, and with all my being, I do believe that when our sexual selves are not starved, when we're not hungry, there is a large layer that comes off of us of anger and confusion and dismissing others, because we're satiated and we're not having to fill that void anymore. So again, when we're not sexually repressed, depressed, or suppressing ourselves, we can more fully express who we are. So then we can focus on other things, which might be helping another person, or okay, I'm full, but like, what does expanded pleasure mean? How can I take this? How can I take sex and my sexuality to a different level? You know, how can I set these goals? These are all part of someone's biography. And also, to be really clear, sex does not have to mean penetration. It does not have to mean partnered sex. Sex and sexuality is whatever that means to you and for you. It is for you. This doesn't need to be an act or or appeasing someone else's wants and needs. That's why it starts internally and then can go outward into your relationship or relationships and communities and world. So just for people who maybe feel more asexual or don't have a partner, like that can just mean, how do you feel fulfilled sexually?
Right.
Doesn't even have to mean solo play or penetrative sex.
Right. Which is where we generally go to when we hear or say the word sex. It's what I call the 10%. Like, it's just that 10% of where the genitals are located, when really our entire being has erotic potential. And
that is core.
Yeah, and that's what's been taken from us, because then we're harder to control if we have our own erotic potential.
Exactly. And that sentiment, that line loops into what I was saying before, of just all these buffers that are put up in order to keep us from feeling that naturally, and not either having to be fulfilled by something externally. Oh, I need this hair product. Oh, I need this.
Right.
really cool ribbon in my hair, or like whatever the heck it is that's supposed to attract or like elevate myself. Like we are naturally, and I keep saying it, but carnally, like in us, we are sexual humans, and there's a spectrum of what that is, but you're on it. We're all on it. So figuring out where that is for you and being in that natural state for yourself allows you to show up more wholly. So in terms of your biography, some of the ways that, so we offer a lot of prompts. That's one of the things that we do each month when we go through the monthly themes. We give prompts, and we also talk about these concepts in our classes, and we break them down, and we try to take off the shame on a lot of these layers. So these prompts, something to give your listeners and watchers, you might want to consider is you can start writing your biography at any point. And that includes, I can start with touch, like when's the first time that you remember touch? When's the first time that you maybe remember erotic touch? You can do practices on yourself of just going along your body and like what parts feel nice and best to you. What kind of touch do you like? These are exercises that you can do on your own and write them down and take notes. And it might be one week and one the next month. And that's you showing either an expansion or change in your biography. And because we do this in other parts of our lives, just for listeners' framework, again, like we do this with our careers. We say, oh, okay, I did this project and now I have these new skill sets, so I'm like slightly different and I can position myself to be like a slightly different person. Like this is all the same. It's just giving yourself that reflection and the space and time to understand that this should be a priority. This should be a priority for you to be able to show up more fully and authentically
for yourself.
It's fun. Like it's like really fun, so why not?
Well, I know you and I have some plans to have more fun together. So
yes.
Other than it with my platforms, how do we find you? How do folks find
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
So we are everywhere one might look by searching at MySexBio. So MySexBio.org, on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the socials at MySexBio.
At MySexBio. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great job.
Much gratitude.
Yeah. You take care, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Susan.
Bye-bye. Yay.
Great. That was easy.
Oh, how did it flow? Was my recording doing any jumping or?
No, it was much better.
Okay,
much better.
Turned it off then. Yeah. I love your energy, your passion, like it certainly comes across, and people can get that this is something that is it's so global. It's like what happened to human beingness. We got robbed of this huge piece, and I don't want to say too much about religion. I know you danced around it too. It's not, it still says it's recording.
You can keep recording. We can just keep this chat. This might be usable.
Oh, I don't know if it'll send though. That's what I'm afraid of.
It's 2:00.
But I'll leave it on. Maybe Emily can figure it out. But what was I going to say about, we kind of danced around the religion, which, it's such a topic that we have to dance around, but it's at the core of what they took from us back in when femininity was burned at the stake as witches. It's that divine feminine, that piece of us that is soft and loving. And you touched on it. I didn't want to take it for a run, but I love it. It's like, it is about peace, and peace is cheap. War is expensive. And that's what keeps the war machine going. They don't want us to have peace.
Yeah, I would throw out, as soon as we can commoditize peace,
Yeah.
it will happen.
Right. Yeah.
Very, very easy. Yeah, I mean, the it. I know we talked about this, but it's why, and I consider it really like one of our foundational classes. But it's why we have the class fucking capitalism,
Yeah.
because it's there that we are looking into and expanding of how these external economical and institutional
Mhm.
institutions,
Yeah.
how strongly they affect and influence things. And I'll say from our end, we have not head on looked at religion, but it's we intend to. I want to look at sex through the eyes of Christianity, sex through the eyes of Islam, sex through the eyes of Buddhism. Like that is in our framework and plan. I have no issue doing that. I think it's incredibly important. Um, because it's no different than us breaking it down and looking at all the other institutions that we do. You know, when we look at it in terms of ethical porn, we're looking at it in terms of these religious institutions. Like they have played a role
Yeah.
up to the point of why ethical porn does not exist in mainstream media. You know, like I think that you have to have those layers in the conversation. Or for us, in terms of the research that we're trying to provide, if we don't, we're not actually putting out a full view of what's going on, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
exciting work.
That's also part of what gets my fire going. So it's important to me.
I'm right there with you. I know.
Yeah.
I've been fired up and let down and fired up and let down, and you just have to keep going. It's like, what else would I do? I don't know. Go work at Starbucks, get free Starbucks. That's my first choice after.
Preach the sexual reclamation word at Starbucks. You can do it. I
Yeah.
can see it.